Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Let Love Be Your Guide podcast. My name is Dominique Chantel. I'll be your host, guiding you through. Okay, so first, I want to just thank you for watching. This is my sixth episode, and I am so excited because the views are growing, the community is growing, and this group or this podcast was created to educate you on going through a divorce, how to process through a divorce. Ultimately, I share my story and I help you, start the process of healing on your own divorce. I would encourage you to find a therapist if you are going through a divorce. And so that's what I had to do. I would definitely encourage you to speak with someone along with watching the videos and following me and talking about the things that I discuss in the videos so that you can process through things and hash out things so that you can be a better individual. The whole podcast is about becoming the best version of you that you can be even after a divorce. You do not have to have it wreck your life. You can have an abundant life after divorce. That's what Let Love Be Your Guide is about, okay? It's about my story and how I had to fall in love with myself all over again and how I learned to love God as well. And He showed me what love is and what love can be when you truly use it. So, today I will be talking about addressing the 7 stages of divorce. And so, the 7 stages of divorce are, let's start with number 1. We have denial is the first. Then you have fear is the second. Then you have anger. Then you have bargaining and divorce. Then you have guilty, the guiltness of divorce. Then you have depression and divorce. Sorry, that's 6. And then you have the final stage with it, which is accepting your divorce, okay? And so today I'll be talking about the first 3. The first 3 are denial, fear, and anger. And I do believe that this is important because if you don't get through these phases, they'll never be as successful in, to the grieving process. Okay? And so I do want to let you know that I have a book out. It's called Let Love Be Your Guide. And it has been doing really well. I'm so happy and I'm so excited about just the feedback that I've been receiving about it being transparent, open, and honest. I poured my heart into this book. And so if you haven't already, go get it. Let Love Be Your Guide, Volume 1. It's a 30-day devotional on how I process through my divorce. And it gives you scriptures at the beginning of each day, and it breaks down the scriptures on how it helped me through my divorce and how it can help you. It's basically the raw emotions of going through divorce, the full 30 days, and then you have a journal. So there are lines where you can actually write each day how you're feeling. So it's a book and a journal. So it's a devotional journal. So I wrote that for you. It's a tool that you can use. And that's how this podcast was born. And so you can also follow me on Instagram for those of you that are already subscribers of my YouTube. If you can follow me on Instagram at Dominique Chantel and share this with everybody you know. It may be that you know someone going through a divorce, so share it with them. And you may not know somebody going through a divorce, but I still do think that just key aspects of my podcast and what I talk about, they're very instrumental in helping you live an abundant life, whether you're going through a divorce or not. Okay, so I just pray that you can take something from it and use it, that it will impact you and solve a problem that you have. And so next, I want to say, please subscribe, like YouTube channel, please. Okay, y'all, support your girl. I am just again, I'm just so excited the love and support that I've been receiving. This is truly a passion of mine, and I'm so happy that I get to do this and I get to talk about it and I get to help others, and just having the conversation and the transparency about being a Christian and being a human being and the fact that we grieve and we go through things, and it's natural to feel all these feelings, but it's like, how do you cope? How do you cope with these things? And so that's what I'm here for. So I'm here to be your guide through starting the healing process on a divorce. So I'll be with you through the entire process. As long as you stick with me, I promise, you will get through. I got through, you'll get through. So a little bit about me. I was married for 10 years to my high school sweetheart. We met at the age of 17, and we went off to college together. And then after that year, we decided, okay, it's not working. He moved back home. I stayed in college, finished up, got my degree, and we reunited on Facebook after I graduated college. And the rest is history. We got married, and we have two beautiful kids together that we're raising together. We're co-parenting together. And so I'm just super, again, I want you to see and know that there is life after divorce. You will get through it, and I want to help you through it, okay? So I am going to start off by talking about denial. And so, again, we're addressing the 7 stages of divorce. This video will be broken up into 2 parts. And so, first, I'm going to discuss the first 3, which are denial, fear, and anger, okay? And so, your first thought, I feel like, when you file for a divorce or when you know that it's happening, there is a denial. There is a shock factor to it. You know, it's like nobody goes into a marriage thinking that you'll get a divorce. Or I'll be honest, I didn't. So I went into my marriage and I'm like, divorce never crossed my mind. Even though I would throw it up in the marriage, I never knew that we would get a divorce. So it was just something that I was using, which is what I talk about in a podcast before this. So you should go back and watch all of them. But divorce is not something that you go into a marriage thinking, oh, I'm going to get a divorce. And so when I filed my papers in 2019 for divorce, it was a shock. When I submitted the paperwork, I was like, I am really doing this. Like, this is happening. And the fact that it was kind of like almost, it was surreal, because when I think about the emotion, I was kind of happy because I was freeing myself from the drama, but I was sad at the same moment too, because my life as I knew it would be no more. And my kids' life as they knew it, it would be no more. And so that's really like what hurt me and stopped me in my tracks, really, and started to think about just the shock that, okay, this is really happening. This is moving, you know. And at first, I was in denial. I didn't want to accept the reality that I was getting a divorce. As a matter of fact, I felt like a complete failure. You know, I felt that I couldn't, how was I going to explain this to my kids? How could I be divorcing someone that I made a vow to? I felt like a complete failure. In all honesty, if I'm going to be transparent, it's going to be real. I felt like a failure because I don't give up on things. And I pride myself in doing that. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I stick to it and go through with it. But this, in fact, it was, you know, it was something that I had to sit with, you know, so I was in denial and I wasn't shocked. So when you first go through a divorce, or even with just, you know, if you're on the other end of receiving the papers, you know, that can be traumatic. So I would say you definitely have to take a minute, because it's not easy, and you have to center yourself and find something that brings out the best in you and brings out joy, you know, because initially it is the shock factor in the denial that it's having a hard time. You're having a hard time accepting it. So accepting the reality. that your marriage is ending and it's no more. And so, it's almost like, what happened? You have to ask yourself that, whether you are the one filing for divorce or you're receiving the papers. It's like, okay, what happened for this? What happened for the marriage to break down? And those are questions that you have to ask yourself on both ends. So I would say the initial phase is denial, and shock. However, when sitting in those feelings, you really have to get your mind together and wrap your mind around the fact that, okay, this is happening. And you have to ask. For me, I had to ask God, I need you to lead me through this. I need you to guide me through this. I need you to help me, God. Because there is no way that I'm going to be able to accept this when this is something that I definitely did not plan to happen, me filing for divorce. And so that's the way I made it through it. So you have to acknowledge it. At the end of the day, you have to say, okay, this is happening, but don't sit in it, okay? Process through it and move forward. Who knows? That may be a day for you. That may be a week. It may be 2 months. It may be 3 months. You truly don't know how much time that phase will happen, the denial and shock. But it does happen. And as long as you're moving through it, don't stay there, move through it. And again, if you need to get a therapist at this time, go ahead and do so. Get yourself help, okay? So that's the first phase. So allow yourself to feel the feelings, but move through it. Don't stay there, okay? The next point I want to make is the phase of divorce is fear. Okay, so I kind of talked about this in my first podcast, first or second episode. But I talked about how I didn't know how I was going to make money. I didn't know how I was going to carry a household. And so the fear of not knowing what was going to happen really propelled me into worry, more fear, anxiety, and almost slick depression. And we'll talk about depression on the second part of this, on this episode. But I was really trying to figure out, I was trying to make it work or control the situation. And, fear was there. It was evident. It was like, hey, I'm here. Hey. And because you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know who the judge is going to side with. You don't know financially, if you are relying on 2 households, you have to then go into the mode of planning and restructuring your budget. Restructuring, how do you go from day to day, like your routine. And so the fear of unknowing, man, you can be there for a while, but again, move through it and make sure that you have support around you, people who support you, people who love you, who genuinely want to see you do well. That's the main thing. If I can say just anything, if you don't get anything else out of this episode, make sure you have a support system around you, people that'll hold you up, that you can reach out to during any point in this process and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling today. Can you just listen? Or I need an encouraging word. So again, the fear can definitely paralyze you and keep you there, but don't stay there. Fear is not of God. Again, the way I got through it was my faith. My faith has made me whole, and I pressed through. And so I'm just so glad. But you will experience that fear because you don't know. Okay, next, which is really the last point, is anger. Anger. And so we may sit here on this one for a moment. So I will say, because I was the one who filed for divorce, I didn't feel a lot of anger only going through the divorce, because there was so much, a little bit of back and forth. So I was angry about that. I will say that I don't harbor negative feelings. I don't harbor negative energy. And so for me, this one came when the other person would push buttons, and I'd be like, "Ooh, he doing that. He knows how to push my buttons. He knows how to get me upset to the point where I just want to, you know what I'm saying? I just might flip out." And so anger for me is a little bit different. I was angry the fact that he still knew how to push my buttons, even though we were getting a divorce. And I was allowing, his actions to basically dictate, how I was feeling, and that had to stop. And so with anger, you probably will feel anger. You more than likely will feel anger, especially if you're on the other end, the person dealing with the actual receiving the papers. It's like, what? They gave me this. What's going on? The initial response would be, you're angry, you're upset. Why? Feel all those feelings again. You're feeling the fear, you're feeling the denial, you're feeling the shock, you're feeling the anger. But my thing is, don't stay there. Anger is a human emotion, and it's natural. I know growing up they used to say, "Oh, you shouldn't get angry." Well, who said that? We always probably will get angry, a lot in our lives, but it's just how we deal with it. How do we cope with it? I will never forget the most important thing, and that's why I said you need a therapist going through this. I can help you start the healing process, but you need a therapist, okay? You need a counselor. Seek counseling, because I did. And I will never forget my therapist asked me, she said, "What coping skills do you have for going through this divorce?" And she said, "You've been so busy preparing for the good in your life that you haven't been preparing for the bad things that happen." And I said, "Well, I don't expect bad things to happen, or expect, things like this to happen to me." But she was like, "Dominique, they do though. And the more bad things will happen to you." So how are you going to deal with those things? And then it has me putting my hand on my head like, okay, Doc, well, maybe you're right. Maybe I do need to get some coping skills for this, And when she said that, I had all my life, I've always had a bubbly personality, and I'm always positive, uplifting, and loving, but I had not prepared for a traumatic experience like this. When I tell you that going through this divorce has been the most challenging thing that I had ever experienced in my adult life, it has been. It has been the most traumatic experience for me. And I guess the reason why I took it so hard is because I hadn't prepared for it. I liken it to, how they say, you have to prepare for your parents, to pass away. Eventually they will pass away. And it's like, you don't want to talk about it. I know with my brother, when we were younger, we would talk about, like, my parents were like, "Oh, when I leave here," we like, "Mom and Dad, don't talk about that. Don't say that." But the reality of it is, they are going to pass away. And how are we going to deal with it? What are our coping skills? What are the coping mechanisms that we're going to use? But guess what, baby? Let me tell you, I ain't saying that losing my parents is like a divorce, but I feel now I will be better equipped to handle a traumatic experience, a loss, more now than I have ever been in my life, because I've gone through this divorce, okay? And so I say all that to say, you have to prepare for the unexpected. You have to ground yourself in something that is solid, a solid foundation. And that for me has been the Word of God. And I want to say to you that If you don't have a solid foundation, if you don't have something anchoring you, holding you down, such as the word of God, you will lose your mind going through something as traumatic as a divorce, as traumatic as a loss, as traumatic as, a death. So divorce is a spiritual loss. It's a spiritual death. It's two souls have come together to become one, and then you break those souls apart, and it's like all that residue in between, that what you have put together, when you pull it apart, what comes out. So you have to think about that, and you have to learn to deal with that. And so I want you to know that you can have an abundant life after you have processed through this divorce. But I want to also say that I don't want you to be so much in your feelings that you can't function, because at that point that turns into depression. And again, you need to see a therapist if it's affecting your everyday life. You need to see somebody. Again, I say allow yourself to feel all these feelings. So allow yourself to feel the anger, to feel the hurt, the frustration. Feel those feelings, but don't stay there. It's important that you move through this time in your life, and you do it gracefully. I want to say that, so we talked about denial is the first stage. We talked about fear, and we talked about anger. And so let me not say the first stage, but the thing is, you can feel denial, fear, and anger throughout the process. So you may feel like anger first, and then you may feel denial. So, but these are just the stages, and you actually may experience them, differently. So people are different. But what I want you to know is that you have to find something that brings you joy at the end of the day when going through this. You have to take a step aside and step back and say, what can I do right now? Even though I'm feeling denial, I'm feeling anger, I'm feeling frustration, I'm feeling fear right now. What can I do right now that can bring my soul joy? And I had to figure that out. And for me, and that's how you get back to loving yourself, within even going through a divorce, you can learn to love yourself. And that's how I learned to love myself. That's why you should get my book, Let Love Be Your Guide, okay? But you have to get back to what gives you the joy. And for me, it was really traveling. It was traveling and spending time with my family. And being married, I spent time with my mother and father, but not the way I wanted to. It was me, my ex-husband, and the kids, like all the time, which they are, my family. But it was that quality time. Me and my mom used to go to the movies all the time together. And it was that. So now we have started back going to the movies, although COVID has pretty took a hit on that. But when we can, we go to the movies together. And so we do that. That's a good pastime. My dad, I used to love just really watching NASCAR with him. He watches NASCAR on Sundays. And so we used to sit there and watch NASCAR. And then also we used to go fish when he could fish. My dad has rheumatoid arthritis, and so he can't do the things that he once could do, but we would go fishing, So getting back to that, getting back to things that bring you joy. Me going to the movies, taking myself out to the movies, taking myself out to a dinner, spending time with my best friends. And so you have to get back to doing things that you enjoy doing and loving on yourself. And so that's why I say, experience these emotions, okay? So experience the denial, the fear, the anger, friend, but don't stay there. Move through them. It's important that you progress through these, okay? And that you speak with a therapist, that you speak with someone that is going to help you go through this process, and that you are doing everything that you can do in order to be a complete and whole and healed you. That's what this life is about. That's what this podcast is about. Educating you, helping you to be a more healed, whole, better you, a better version of you. You come out on top. You come out thriving. You come out a better person on the outside of this, on the other side. If you are going through your divorce right now and you feel like there is no hope, I want to tell you that there is hope on the other side, that there is joy on the other side. There is a blessing on the other side. And I know if you're like me, I asked God, and I really told him, I was like, how am I going to make it through? I don't know how I'm going to make it through. And I said, and he whispered to me, and he said, you are going to make it through, and I'm going to help you. And so I held on to that word. I held on to God's unchanging hand. And when I say my faith, when it says in the Bible, your faith has made you whole, it's like when you truly believe and you trust in God to know that he will provide for you and he will help you through anything. He will. So I want to tell you, be encouraged. Know that this is not the end. This is only the beginning of your story. You will go on to do big, great, better things. And please, if this has helped you in any way, please leave a comment, like, subscribe, follow, and share with anyone who is going through or thinking about going through a divorce. I just want to help as many people as I can. That's my mission. That's my goal. To have you be a more abundant you, a healed you, a better version of yourself, and for you to just thrive and know that there is a life, another life, a better life for you, the next chapter on the other side of this. Y'all be blessed. Catch me on the next episode. I will be talking about the next four, which are bargaining and divorce. We're talking about guilt and divorce, depression, and then finally accepting that you are divorced and this is final, okay? So again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so very much. And remember to follow me on Instagram at Dominique Chantel, Facebook at just Dominique. You can find me by my email, DominiqueSongbird.com. DominiqueSongbird@gmail.com. And then also find me on Twitter at Dominique777. All right. I love y'all. Until next time, be blessed. Bye.